Last week, we opened up the show with a quote from Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. This week, I think a little Joe Jackson is more appropriate because in episode 2 of Disney Plus's Moon Knight, you got to look sharp and you got to have no illusions. Hey everyone, it's me, Lord Deathman, back with the Champions to bring you another episode of the Review of Champions. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and get subbed up. There's a lot coming in the weeks ahead that you won't want to miss. And you can also join us on the forum at sakar.freeforums.net. We'll be talking spoilers today, so now's your chance to jump ship if you haven't already seen episode 2 of Moon Knight. And with all of that preamble out of the way, guys, let's turn our attention to the arena where we have several champions joining us today. Let's do some quick introductions. Grandmaster, you ready to talk about this episode? Episode 2, Summon the Suit?
Absolutely. I rewatched it earlier this evening, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this episode, so I'm kind of excited. Loki's mom is also joining us today. How are you doing today? You ready to talk Summon the Suit?
I'm doing great. And yeah, the Summon the Suit, I think it really advances the story and gives us a little bit better idea. I think I have a better take on who Steve and Mark may be, but we'll talk about that.
Indeed, indeed. And Taylor, this awesome quick wardrobe change in episode 2, how are you doing today? And are you ready to talk about it?
I'm doing very good. And it should have called it Summon the Suits, plural. There was more than one suit.
Yeah. I think they're really ramping up. I don't know what the critics who saw this in advance were thinking and didn't think that this was a great episode, but we're going to break it all down, analyze it, discuss it in this episode, guys. And I immediately want to say, ladies first, let's get Loki's mom to give us her initial impressions of this episode, highs, lows. Let's give us a quick snapshot of what you thought of this episode.
It not quite as engaging, I think, as the first episode. I think the first one really just kind of locked you in onto the story. This one, I think, gets a little bit more scattered. We're introduced to who is allegedly Mark's wife. I have questions. I have my doubts about that. So we get a little bit more insight into Mark possibly being the solid character here, the solid human. But then, still there's other things you're not sure. It kind of, I think, like I say, I'm not that familiar with the Moon Knight and the comic book, so I think a lot of this is all new to me. So when he puts on the Mr. Knight suit or forms it on his body somehow, I wasn't even aware that guy existed. So that was kind of like, whoa, or kind of off kilter. But I mean, the humor, I think they played the humor off the serious real well in this episode, because there was a lot of gags and whatnot, that Marvel's good for.
Well, I'm kind of blown away by the idea that you think that Layla may not be who she says she is. Are you going to stick to that theory?
Well, I think she's still a cipher. She's still a question mark. I mean, that was the actress herself. I mean, she pretty much you could have plopped any actress, just from a binder into that character. There was like almost nothing to her. She's just kind of there, and she's the Layla. She's the face to that name that's on the phone in the first episode. So I don't know. She just seems real dodgy to me, and possibly she's not. She's another construct of Stephen's malady or whatever you want to call it. So we'll see. I think she's not who. I don't think she is who we think she is right now.
Okay, that's a spicy hot take. So you're taking us into Fight Club territory for real there. Mm-hmm. But We're going to come back to you and you're going to sort of unravel that a little bit more for us in the deeper discussion. But I want to jump to Taylor now and sort of get your quick reaction, snapshot of this second story. Do you think it did a good job of sort of advancing the narrative?
Yeah, I think it did an excellent job of advancing the narrative. I think that's primarily what this episode did. We found out a lot more about Mark and Steven, and Mark and Layla, and Arthur. There was a lot of interaction between all of the characters. The interaction, and I thought all the dialogue was really pretty compelling. In fact, the dialogue between Steven and Mark, especially both being Oscar Isaac, having a conversation with himself, was really good. But the dialogue between Layla and Steven as well, and I really liked the discussion between Steven and Arthur when Arthur took him to his, whatever you would call it, his cult lair, hangout place with the lentil soup and stuff. Really interesting discussion that's going on there. And Kanchu, we talked a lot to Kanchu in this episode and found out more about him. So there was just a whole lot of information put out in this latest episode.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Taylor. They really did a good job of sort of getting into people's motivations and kind of giving us a little bit more of the backstory as far as Khanshu and the avatars and the whole power struggle that seems to be going on with the Egyptian pantheon of gods. So I was really digging it. Thanks for that, though. Grandmaster, let's get your snapshot of the episode. Anything that really piqued your attention that you want to immediately say off the top of your head about the episode?
Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Okay. Please elaborate.
Amit has the same motivation as Hydra in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, with the helicarriers. Cross people off before they do the crime. That really stood out to me. So Marvel needs to be careful, actually, because they are starting to repeat themselves. That's a really heavy-handed, but it did cross my mind. I liked the episode a lot. It was a lot of exposition, but cleverly done by having a lot of dialogue between characters, delving into their relationships, delving into their motivations. So yeah, I really liked it. And to top it off with that amazing action scene where you see Moon Knight in action really for the first time. I mean, besides he kicking some Jackal's ass in the end of the last episode, the first one. So that was great. And I really dug the Mr. Knight suit. He looked really sharp.
Yeah.
He did remind me a little bit of Deadpool, though.
Oh, in terms of the personality or the costume?
Just the way it looked. The mask with the eyes, the white eyes. It really had a little bit of a Deadpool vibe. And when there was also a little bit of the talking and the fun, and you know what I mean.
Right. In terms of how they interjected the humor with the character.
Exactly. So it really gave me a little bit of a Deadpool vibe, but not in a bad way, by the way. And I'm not a real big fan of Deadpool, but this was well done. But those are the few things that were fluttering in my mind.
All right. And Loki's mom, you had a quick follow up on what Grandmaster was saying.
Yeah, he's when he says that Marvel's starting to repeat itself, and then citing that they're using the same theme of eliminating the threat before it happens. Which, okay, Marvel may be repeating itself there, but my gosh, don't we repeat that all the time throughout history?
I agree. I mean, I know about the 36 possible dramatic plot lines, but so everything is a ripoff of each other. And I'm not blaming Marvel for doing it. I'm just saying it really struck me that the motivation of Amit is a little bit like Hydra in the Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Only instead of using the power of the gods, the Egyptian god, it's using helicarriers. but it's basically the same thing.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is that, though, is this not an allusion to what really we do in real life? I mean, that's the eliminate the threat before it happens. That's the excuse for all genocide. You know, I didn't mean to get too deep here. Maybe y'all need to cut this part out.
No. I understand what you mean, and I mean,
I like to say that, I like to point out where Marvel is trying to talk about deep down and underlying. They're trying to talk about real social and cultural themes. They're using all these fantastic ways of getting at it because, we can't, in our society now, we can't just throw out the generic Indian or the generic whatever, so that the good guys can kill them. We can't do this. So these characters become substitutes for that. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I totally understand it. It's just that I just saw the similarity. That's it.
Yeah,
I wanted to point it out.
I'm gonna take just a second to step into the discussion here. I think you both are making some points that have a lot of merit. Whether the motivations of the writers at Marvel is to, have some subtext and talk about prescient issues that are going on in society and mask that in fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, it's a little easier to sort of swallow that pill. But I think in terms of the repetition, you are absolutely right, Loki's mom. The motivations of Hydra and the motivations of Amit are very similar, but they're being executed in a very different way. I think Hydra was kind of using statistics and big data to decide if someone was going to turn out to be a threat 5 to 10 years down the line. But Amit might have supernatural powers in terms of seeing the future and is just prejudging based on something that she's seeing in a possible future for that person and deciding that they can't be a part of her paradise.
Yeah, and that's and what I'm pointing out is when we want to say it's repetitious, it's not. It's repetitious. Marvel's just being repetitious, being reflective of what's repetitious in our own cultures and societies.
Indeed. I'm going to take a moment to jump to Taylor, though, who has something to add to this discussion as well.
Yeah, when Grandmaster pointed out that their motivations are similar to Hydra, it reminded me that as we've seen, Hydra's earliest origins were very much linked to the occult, if I recall from
that is absolutely right. Yeah,
Captain America, First Avenger, and a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went into Hydra and its occult backstory, and a lot of other Marvel products talk about that too. And I'm just wondering, was that an intentional connection they're making there between the motivations?
Well, yeah, that could very well be intentional. Actually, I saw another video on TikTok. Yeah, I should not be on TikTok as much, but yeah, what do you do?
Busted.
Yeah. But there is in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, when Sitwell is being interrogated on the rooftop, he mentions a news anchor in Cairo. Just a flutter in between. Cairo, Moon Knight are very heavily linked as well. That also, and knowing Marvel, that's not a coincidence. So I know it's a stretch. Maybe Reed Richards is even jealous of my stretch here, but there are more connections between the Winter Soldier, the movie The Winter Soldier, and Moon Knight episode 2. So there's something going on there.
All right. Well, we want to give you a chance to do a deep dive on that when we get to people talking a little bit more in detail about their highs and lows for the episode and also bundling a rating into that particular discussion. So if you're out there listening to us in Fandom Land, please stay tuned for the rest of the discussion. We're obviously off to a very spirited start here. Once again, ladies first, I'm going to go back to Loki's mom and sort of get your deep dive review of the episode. What stood out to you? What might have been a negative to you in the episode, and then tell us what a possible rating for the episode would be.
Yeah, like I said earlier, yeah, I have no problems with the overall episode. I thought it was, well done and everything. Maybe just a little less so than the first one if you're going to just compare the two episodes. There's like one scene where Khanshu, Mark is in the storage unit area, and he's running through the halls, and all of a sudden Khanshu appears to him finally, and that for some freaky reason there's just like a freeze frame there.
Yeah, I
Just,
noticed
I don't
that.
know why they did that. I think that's the only. If they would do that in, like several scenes per episode, that would be, sort of like their little style thing that they're doing. But that's just the first time they've done that I've seen anywhere, I think, in any of the TV shows. So for some weird reason that just stood out to me. Like I said, I think Layla, I don't really like her right
Okay.
now. So we'll see what turns out with her. I just don't trust her. Yeah, the Mr. Knight, I think, pointed him out as a Deadpool-like character. So yeah, I think that humor, that sort of taking the superhero genre and lampooning it, it's, within itself, just making the whole thing a joke. I think they kind of pushed that a little bit on there. So we'll see how that goes through which fits in with that Mark or whoever. Steven is a mental case, I mean, he's just
right.
going to be like Deadpool's the same way. He's a mental case, So that doesn't disturb me too much. I think it's kind of fun though to add that into the series. So, and then on top of that, I think the whole aspect of they're delving into religion and the mythology and everything like that, and all these how these mythological characters are of old are being factored back in there. Somehow they're coming back into our consciousness now here in the 21st century, and I think that's interesting commentary on that.
Yeah, it really is. And I could counter what you're saying about some of the slapstick or the parody that comes with the Mr. Knight character. In the comic books, Mr. Knight is a separate personality altogether, and he's very much a Sherlock Holmes side of the character. As Batman kind of is both the detective and he's also this like super physical guy when it comes to taking down bad guys. They separated that with Moon Knight into two different aspects of his personality. So it's usually Mr. Knight who kind of helps out with investigations and doing that kind of work. But in television on the Disney Plus series, they've kind of turned that on its head, and Mr. Knight is now Steven's version of Moon Knight, which I think is kind of interesting that the innocent, as Taylor would call that character, also has the ability to call on Khonshu's powers. And for him, it's kind of like a totally new experience, and seeing it through his eyes, I thought was pretty exciting in the episode. But that being said, I'm going to jump to Taylor next for your deep dive analysis. Give us the usual high quality thoughts that you usually share on these episodes, Taylor. What stood out to you?
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. I don't know anything about the Moon Knight character. I've never read any of the comics. So I'm strictly going by this show. And I am totally confused as to Steve and Mark and Moon Knight and Kanchu. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't know who's real and who's fake. There was one point where Kanchu said to Mark, when I found you, you were a corpse, or something to that effect, which made me think, well, then he took Mark's soul and put it into Steven's body. But Layla, Mark's wife, looks at Steven and sees Mark. So it's not a different face and body unless she met him after they had done the body swap or whatever. So again, these are just the things going through my head as I'm watching the episode. Hopefully that'll become more clear, whether they were both there all the time in the same body, or one was put into another's body, one's a fake. And if Steven is a fake, not the real person,
right?
Why is he there at all? Who needs him? Why wouldn't they just have it be Mark all the time? Why does Kanchu have to have this other guy that he obviously doesn't even like, Steven? He doesn't want him around as little as possible from Kanchu's perspective. Yeah. So all of that, I think, just builds, the intrigue to the story. The other thing I liked about this episode, I had seen online a lot of people theorizing that this episode 2 was going to be episode 1 from Mark's perspective, a rerun, basically, right, of episode 1, but from the other perspective. And I'm glad they didn't do that. I think that would have been a waste and completely unnecessary. So I did like that they progressed the story forward. We're moving forward from where we left off. Steven, everyone thinks he's crazy. The jackals and stuff don't show up on cameras, so no one, everyone thinks, and the fact that people can't even see them other than Steven and which is kind of weird. Steven and Mark can see the jackals and stuff, but no one else can.
Right.
Even Layla had to hit it with something to make it look a little bit visible, threw some water on it or something. So everybody thinks he's crazy. And of course he's dressed, when he was in the Mr. Knight costume, he's dressed like a crazy person. So his life is completely, gone away. And Mark kind of took over for a while. And of course we saw at the end of episode, they've gone to Egypt. And they did a lot, as far as advancing the story went, Arthur's got the scarab, I believe now, and he's going to use it to bring forth his goddess, whatever her name is.
Right, bring her into the real world.
To judge the world and kill everybody who might someday do something bad, which is pretty much everybody, I guess. Overall, really good episode. A lot of intrigue, like I mentioned earlier, the character development just through the conversations between all the people, I thought worked really well. So that's my main thoughts. My main takeaways from this, this one short episode.
Yeah, would you say you're confused in a good way about this series episode, or in a bad way? In a good way?
Yes, because I think it's a mystery, and I think they're building that up in a lot of ways and giving us all a whole lot of stuff to think about. All of us who haven't read the comics at least.
Yeah, or even us who have read them. I'm just as in the dark as you, because they're making a lot of different choices than what was in the comic books for sure. And Grandmaster, I did see that you had your hand up. Do you no longer have that follow-up, or?
Well, Taylor was mentioning about Layla being Mark's wife. Layla recognizes Mark as her husband. That gave me a thought, actually. In the first episode, Steven doesn't know he's going on a date with the tour guide woman. And actually in episode 1, I was assuming Mark had asked
her out on a date. I know where you're going with this.
While being married. So
right.
That kind of strikes me as strange. So that makes me think that there's actually a third identity at play here.
Indeed. We're going to delve a little deeper into that, Grandmaster. So I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts on that, because when we get to the lightning round, we're going to talk about that for sure.
Oh, so okay, then I spoke too soon. But that actually that thought occurred to me just now. That's why I put my hand up. Yeah, and I will say to both Taylor and Grandmaster, you're both right about the question of what is the purpose of Steven Grant. But I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm probably overthinking this, but Steven Grant really could be a manifestation of the guilt that Mark Spector feels about the way he's kind of run his life as a mercenary. You've got this made-up character in Steven that calls his mom, is living a pretty normal, ordinary life where he isn't involved in murder for hire. So it seems like Steven Grant is kind of like what Mark Spector might have thought his life could have been, had he not lived this life the way he did. But who knows? That could really be a stretch, guys. We were about to jump to Grandmaster for his overall impressions of the episode, but I'm going to take a quick diversion to Loki's mom to just give us a follow-up on this discussion.
Yeah, I think when you talk about what purpose does Steven Grant play, I think you're spot on that he's a retreat. He's something that Mark, when it just gets too much for him, he can't help it. Subconsciously he retreats back to this more innocent person, this schlub, this schlemiel who's a nobody.
The schlemiel.
Rather than the schlemazel that's in servitude to Kanchu. And I had another thought there. And then the snap, I think Grandmaster brought up the snap, and we keep forgetting about that. I bring it up a lot because that had to freak the entire planet Earth out. I mean, there can't be a person. I mean, everything leading up to that would have, but that would have been the cherry on top of the whole mound there. You know, how is society readjusting to that and dealing with the cycle? Like the people who were stuck on Earth for those dreadful 5 years, or the people who just came back and as if nothing had ever happened to them up to that point. You know, so I think how society's dealing with it. And so, yeah, there would probably be a lot of people in Stephen's situation they've lost touch with reality. They're retreating to these cults and these things that are going to promise them, you know, we're going to settle things down for you. You know, come to me, come to this guy, come.
Right,
to this
I've got
guy.
all the answers. Yeah.
So I think that's a subtext that we're playing with here that they don't really talk about as overtly. But they do from time to time. So anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and we're grateful that you're sharing those thoughts with us. Thank you so much. But Grandmaster, we certainly don't want to miss out on your deep dive in terms of highs and lows for the episode. Summon the Soup.
As far as lows go, I don't have really any. Maybe. I was a little bit disappointed because there's something strange going on, but I think it's a third identity, but we will talk about later. Yeah, lows there. Yeah, I really don't have any. I think the guy in the museum, the security guy, is a little bit annoying. Keep calling him Scotty, and well,
the otter guy.
Yeah, it serves a purpose, of course, that Stephen is a nobody to him, but yeah, or is a nobody in that museum or whatever. But it annoys me a little bit. But no, overall, strong episode. Lots of exposition, but it was cleverly done, well written, dialogue. I really love the vibe that the community around Arthur Harrow had. It really reminded me of those communities you had in the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
Sharing all together. It felt really like a cult. So if last week we were talking about Arthur Harrow being Victor Van Doom, I'm not too sure if Victor would be a cult leader like that.
Yeah, and I don't really see Dr. Doom being into lentil soup.
No,
I can't see it.
No,
lentil soup and porpoise videos. I'm not seeing Dr. Doom being all over those.
Yeah, yeah, it's a stretch.
So yeah, no, and yeah, I really the most interesting part to me was that Layla is clearly having no idea that Mark is schizophrenic or has DID. So my thought is that maybe he developed that after they split.
Right.
So she's not aware of that. So she has seen him use the suit. So something happened to Mark while using the suit, maybe that made him become like this. Although Khanshu, on the other hand, says you promised he wouldn't be a problem, talking about Stephen to Mark. So something doesn't add up there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, we still got a bunch of mysteries on our hands there.
So I like really what they're doing with the mirrors. And wherever Mark goes, even if he goes to Cairo, well, becoming a first trap at the end for young girls. Stephen is sitting there on the bed in the mirror. I really like that while Mark is having a drink. So yeah, that Stephen is not gone. Although I think Mark is now really in control, like Steven seemed to be in the first 2 episodes. Now it's Mark who's in the driving seat. So yeah, those are my thoughts. A little bit all over the place, but it's all been said.
The
before.
show is all over the place. I think that's what we can really say about it. So
yeah, it's I actually had a little bit of critique that you didn't see the Jackal in the fight with Layla and Mr. Knight. I know because it made it a little bit, it made it a little bit look silly, if you know what I mean.
I could kind of see that. I mean, it does feel like it's played for comedy when everyone else can't see what the hero is responding to. But didn't really take me out of it. But I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm also not saying it took me out of it. It's just that I would have preferred if we just saw the Jackal. Yeah.
Yeah, along with everybody else.
Yeah, but anyhow, overall, great episode. Well done in advancing the story and giving us more information. And I really can't wait where they go next.
All right,
in Cairo then.
Yeah, neither can I. And we know they're heading to Egypt or have already gone to Egypt by the end of this episode. But let's quickly go around the table, get the ratings for episode 2, Summon the Suit. We're going to start with Loki's mom. How many reflective surfaces, 1 out of 10, can you give to this episode?
I will give it 7.5 cracked mirrors.
7.5 cracked mirrors. That's 7 times 7 in terms of bad luck. That's 49 years. All right. Thank you for that rating. Taylor, how many bowls of lentil soup, 1 out of 10, can you give this episode?
All right. Well, I despise lentil soup, so I'm not going to give any of those. Yep. I'll give it another 9 out of 10 for the episode.
All right. This is a strong series for Taylor, and I think in general the feeling here is that we've got another strong series from Marvel. But last but certainly not least, Grandmaster, how many divorce decrees, 1 out of 10, can you give this episode of Moon Knight?
I didn't think episode 2 was as strong as episode 1. In episode 1, I gave an 8, so I'm going 7 out of 10.
All right, guys. Still very good ratings here. I think the champions are really delving deeply into the mystery here, trying to get behind what's going on with everyone in the series. And we got to give some credit to Marvel for really giving us a very engaging series here in Moon Knight. But it is time for the segment on the POC where we ask the panel to weigh in on some of the fandom's most wildest theories about Moon Knight.
Cannon fodder.
We're going to give 3 theories to the panel, and we're going to ask them to give us a buy, sell, or hold rating on them. Champions, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Let's get started with our first theory. We're going to start with Grandmaster. This one's pretty straightforward, and it seems to have taken hold on Twitter and in social. A couple of guys on Reddit were talking about it as well. Kanchu is the real villain of this entire series. Are you going to buy, hold, or sell?
I'm going to sell that, and that's because Marvel has a tendency, certainly in those Disney Plus shows, to have a villain twist in episode 5 at the end. And I don't see Kanchu being that.
Okay. We've got a sell for our first round. We're going to go to Loki's mom next. Do you believe, I think you believe that Layla is the real villain of the series.
Oh, no. I don't think she's the villain.
That was just a joke. But are you ready to believe that Kanchu could be the ultimate series villain here?
I'm going to sell it. I don't think so. I agree. I think he's too early in the series for who the real villain is, and then we also have the goddess. We don't know who and what she really is. We just have Arthur Harrow's word for it. So, yeah, I just don't. I think Khanshu is a MacGuffin.
Okay, fair enough. We got 2 cells. Taylor, it's up to you to break the trend. Kanchu is the real villain of the series. Buy, hold, or sell?
I'm gonna also sell.
All right, a straight flush.
It's possible, but at this point, I don't see that.
Okay, looks like the fandom strikes out on this first theory. Let's dive right into the next one. This time, we will start with Loki's mom, and this theory, pretty straightforward. Layla will become Moon Knight.
Sell on that.
I felt hesitation. I felt hesitation on that. I think you're going to have to explore that a little bit. It seemed like you were going to hold. Why are you selling?
No, I was just pondering that. I was just mulling that because that's totally come out of the left field for me. So I had to think about it a minute. No,
but there's some precedence in that, Khanshu has made it clear that if Mark can't deliver, he is going to go with Layla as the Fist of Khanshu, the new Fist.
Oh, I missed that part then.
yeah, that happened. That happened. Second episode.
Here, so Layla. My theory about Layla. Do you want to hear this?
Yes, please. Go. I think there's some jealousy because Layla gets to get with Oscar Isaacs. I think you might be.
And Mark Spector too. So it's like a Oscar Isaac sandwich there. Let's see. Layla is an operative for a third party interest. Now, who that third party is, I don't know at this point.
Okay. So, but that being said, you're gonna keep your sell on the fact that Layla becomes Moon Knight. Okay, we can respect that.
I didn't have that other information. You gave it to me after I had already, sold. So I don't know if I can buy it back. But
look, all sales are not final.
I've already made it, so I've already, hell, let it go.
Okay, all right. We got our first sell here. Taylor, you're up next. Layla will become the Fist of Khanshu.
I did hear that part in the episode of Kanchu saying that he was going to use her as the avatar if Mark didn't do it. But I'm gonna sell.
2 cells.
I think being the Fist of Kanchu, if that's what they call it, being Moon Knight is something of a curse, and I think Mark is going to make sure that does not happen to Layla. In any meaningful way. Yeah.
Understood. So we got 2 cells out there if you're not keeping track in fandom land. Grandmaster, it looks like it's up to you to break the trend. Are you going to buy, hold, or sell that Layla will become the next avatar of Khanshu?
I have a question first.
Sure.
Is this definitive, or is it the theory that she becomes Moon Knight at a certain moment, but leaves?
Okay. We can qualify this. I think what the fandom means, and I'm interpreting here, jump in the comments if you disagree with my interpretation, but I believe the fandom thinks that at some point in the series, she will be given the powers of Moon Knight. Whether Mark reclaims those powers later on, that could happen too, but people are saying that, just like you had a female Venom, at some point you're going to have a female Moon Knight in this series.
Then I'm definitely going to buy this.
Okay, that's a buy. All right, I'm putting your order in.
I think at a certain moment, Kanchu will be sick of Mark and Steven and all that fuss that's going around, and maybe that third person we were going to talk about later. And he is going for Layla at that certain moment. But Mark will regain those powers.
He will take control. Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys, this is an excellent segue into our third and final fandom theory that we need the champions to weigh in on, and that is that Khanshu can control the body. And this is why I had asked you, Grandmaster, to kind of hold your thinking on this, because some fans, some sleuths out there in the fandom realize that if Steven had not asked that coworker out on a date, and Mark is a married man, it seems unlikely that he would have asked her out on a date. Then there had to have been a third personality that kind of stepped in at that particular moment. And the fandom speculation is that it is Khanshu that controls the body at that point in time. So the theory here is that Khanshu will reveal himself to be one of the personalities of Moon Knight. Are you going to buy, hold, or sell? Grandmaster.
Sell. I don't believe Kanchu would have been surfacing at that moment when the girl was asked out, and I don't think he can control the body. Arthur Harrow specifically says he can only make wind or something like that on his own. So he can't control the body on his own. So I don't see that happening. And actually, I was thinking about this theory about the asking the girl out, married man, blah, blah, blah. They're actually in a divorce. And if you are, and Mark initiated that divorce, so he may just, but he may just moved on from his marriage with Layla at that point. So that's also a possibility. Although, why divorce Layla to protect her and then start dating other women if you're still in the same
right
thing?
It seems like a heel move.
Yeah. So there are several options, but I'm still going for third person, but that's not Kanchu.
Not Khanshu. Okay, that was a sell. Taylor, you had a follow-up, and we also want to get your buy, hold, sell rating on Khanshu takes control of the body.
Yeah, just real quick follow-up of what Grandmaster said. I think it is possible that Layla will momentarily become Moon Knight. I hope not, because I just think that would be very hokey. If they did that, it would be like, the scene in The Mask, where the mask is getting thrown around the room and different people put it on and get the power for 5 seconds,
Maybe the fish becomes Moon Knight.
Exactly. I hope they don't do that. I think that would be hokey if they did do it that way, but it is possible that momentarily, but I don't think at the end of the series she's going to be Moon Knight. Other question, Kanchu. So Kanchu is a god, Egyptian god of something or other.
Of the moon.
Who's taken time out to make it with the ladies in his free time. Is that the theory here?
That is the theory, that Kanchu likes steak and curly-haired ladies from the gift shop.
Kanchu can control the body to a degree. I believe his ability to do that is very limited. And the reason I say that was from episode 1, when Steven was trying to give the scarab to Arthur. He couldn't do it. He couldn't control his hand. So I assumed that was Kanchu keeping the scarab away from Arthur at that point. However, I think obviously that's a very limited ability. So I don't think Kanchu takes over the body fully and becomes a whole
another personality. Right.
And if he did, I really don't think he would be making dates with the museum girl.
So that's a sell for you, Taylor, correct?
Yeah, sell.
All right. We got 2 sells on this theory. Fandom, you're striking out here. Loki's mom, are you ready to break the trend on this? Do you believe that Khanshu has a nightlife that he that he uses Mark's body to execute on?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell on that. Yeah,
okay.
I don't. Yeah, what everybody's already said, pretty much applies.
All right. Well, the fandom certainly is in a lot of trouble because the champions are looking at these theories and we're being very critical here. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Cannon Fodder, everybody who's out there listening in fandom land. We're going to do the lightning round before we close out the show, where I ask the panelists a couple of random questions to get their thoughts on it so far about the episode and the show in general. I'm going to start with Grandmaster. So this is really your baby in terms of the new identity. If it wasn't Khanshu, and if it wasn't Steven, and if it wasn't Mark, who asked that coworker from the gift shop out on the date?
I have absolutely no clue what the name will be, but I maybe, and now I'm going on a limb here. Maybe it's the actual person that both Mark Spector and Stephen Grant are manifestations of an actual person, and that he uses Mark Spector to for as a fantasy for his adventurous side, and Stephen as a kind of his clumsy side. And well, we're all adventurous and clumsy, 50-50, yin and yang. So I think Mark Spector and Stephen Grant together make up a third person who's the actual person who should be controlling the body. How that person is called, I don't know.
Well, that being said, there is another personality that is pretty popular in the comic books for Mark Spector / Moon Knight. His name is Jake Lockley. We haven't seen him in the series, so maybe it was Jake that asked this coworker out on a date. And as far as I know from the Moon Knight comic books, Jake is a single man, so everything checks out there as far as that goes. Continuing with the lightning round, Taylor, a question for you. Do you think, Mark, now that the Steven is kind of in the background and Mark is in the foreground, do you think Mark's ever going to let Steven out of his cage? It doesn't seem like it would serve any good purpose.
I don't think he can keep him in his cage. I think there will be some point where Mark loses control and Steven takes over. It may be due to stress, or he's just worn out. He can't fight it anymore. But I think there will be times when Steven takes over, yes.
Indeed. So you heard it here. We think that Steven is going to come back. And it might be at the behest of Mark, because we've seen the reverse happen where Mark kind of has to beg Steven to grab control of the body so that he can activate the Moon Knight persona. So who knows? The opposite might happen. But I would love to see the situation in which that is necessary. That's going to be some clever writing. All right. Our final question in the lightning round goes to Loki's mom. And this one's a simple one. What do you think that scarab actually does?
Well,
Is that scarab sort of going to let Annette come into the real world and sort of do her judgments firsthand instead of through her middleman?
Well, I think its purpose is so far explained that it will lead one to her. It will, you'll be able to find her tomb or whatever it is they're going to, wherever she's at. So yeah, more than likely it's going to be, there's some sort of property inside that, some sort of cosmic, not unlike the Infinity Stones or something like that. Everything's got its, where they can draw it from the cosmos or something. Very common thing throughout the comic books. So yeah, it probably plays that role. I don't know, was the scarab a part of the comic books series? I don't know, so I'm not that familiar with it.
Me neither. It is way beyond my pay grade in Moon Knight. I know nothing about the scarab.
Yeah, so sure, it's going to keep factoring into it. It's just the little objects that you can sort of focus on that everybody wants. Certainly Arrow wants it, and just wrapping it up though. Just commenting. They talked a little bit about the ending scene where not Steven, but Mark is laying there in the hotel room and in Cairo, and it's very much an allusion to the opening sequence in Apocalypse Now, where Martin Sheen's character is the operative, the special force soldier he's got nothing. He's sitting there waiting on his next mission, and he's drunk, and he gets drunk, and he gets in a fight with himself in the mirror and busts his hand and everything. So I think that was very much an allusion to that, and I really liked it.
Well, we'll have to wait for that next episode to see if Spectre actually does a little kung fu against himself in the mirror and gets that bloody hand that Sheen got in Apocalypse Now. But I want to turn to the panel to ask for any closing remarks that you might have on Summon the Suit episode 2. Are we in the clear? Well, all right then. I'd like to thank everybody out there who's been listening to our show. Ladies and gentlemen in Fandom Land, thanks for joining us today. Honestly, we know there's a lot of things that you could be doing your time, so thanks for being with us. I'd like to thank the panel for giving me such great insight into the episode and joining us today and giving us their time. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe. Please get subbed up. It really does help the channel. And we have a lot of exciting content coming in the next few weeks that you're not really going to want to miss. Check us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is you do. The Podcast of Champions is there to meet you. And be sure to check us out on the forum at sakar.freeforums.net. My name is Lord Deathman, and this brings our episode 2 review of Moon Knight to a conclusion. Thanks for joining us.